The scenario begins in 1967 and features Vladimir Kamarov, a colonel and spacecraft pilot, returning to Earth at the end of his mission. His whole spaceship, Soyuz 1, is abruptly swallowed by an unidentified brilliant light as he is ready to pierce Earth's surface, presumably killing him. After a few years, the picture switches to reveal a Mars mission headed by Swedish millionaire William Meyer. After traveling for 10 months, the Ulysses spacecraft crew arrives in Mars orbit. Captain Martin Najak gives Irene, the ship's AI aide, the order to double-check all system settings before starting the landing operation. William describes how he spent 4 years getting ready for this trip and gave up practically all of his money at a team meeting. But as of 2 weeks ago, an American business by the name of Zillion seemed to have beaten them. Nevertheless, the American crew has not spoken with Earth beyond a video alert cautioning people not to visit Mars. The captain of the Ulysses proclaims that they will land at whatever cost, despite the crew members' disagreement with this warning. William later speaks in private with Jean Renoir, the mission therapist, to find out her opinions about landing on Mars. She states that the 10-month travel has made her dangerously neurotic, which is why she is against the landing. She states that she is against the landing because she thinks some of the crew members' deadly neuroses have been aggravated by the 10-month trek. She describes their present predicament. The captain is divorcing his wife, and an engineer called Basile has psychopathic signs, which may impair his judgment and decision-making. Simon, a different crew member, is not in communication with the captain and is not linked to the chain of command. AI Irene checks all the necessary systems while the crew gets ready to land, but she finds an issue. The spacecraft isn't disconnecting from the carrier system. The crew is in grave danger since, should they stay coupled, they would burn up and crash onto Mars like a stone. They deliberate for some time before coming to the conclusion that doing the uncoupling procedure manually is the only viable option. The captain then offers to go out and solve the issue. When he emerges from the spacecraft, he goes to the uncoupling lever and pulls it downward. However, before he can get back, there is turbulence on the spacecraft, which launches the captain into thin air. The crew has little time to grieve despite this catastrophe because the spacecraft is rapidly approaching the surface of Mars. It soon results in a power loss that renders Irene unusable, leaving the crew to land the craft manually. Eventually, after much difficulty, they touch down on the Crimson Planet. They are unable to restart Irene, therefore the issue is still unresolved. They have only 24 hours of oxygen left since the life support system is non-functional without the AI. After examining the spacecraft, they discover that the power required to restart the ship was consumed by the extra fuel used during the landing. The only thing left to do is wait 48 hours for the solar panels to produce enough energy to run the generators. Since they are short on time, the group must choose a different course of action. Now that he is the captain, Simon suggests finding the American ship Zillion and obtaining the required supplies from there. Following through with this plan, Simon, Jean, and Eva embark on a rover as the other members of the team continue to work on getting the ship back on track. Recalling the AI's energy-saving feature, Basile starts the reboot procedure right away, but to no avail. Simon's squad finds the American spacecraft in the meanwhile, but it has crashed and is totally destroyed. When they come across nothing helpful, they choose to return to their ship. They come over an unconscious man in a spacesuit with a package next to him while traveling. Jean demands that they take him along when the crew comes to check on him and finds that he is breathing. Simon worries that they don't have enough oxygen in the air, but Jean convinces him otherwise. When Simon and the group return to the ship later, Jan, a fellow crew member, won't let them on, claiming that 4 surviving are preferable than 8 corpses. Jan and the other members argue about his decision since they disagree with it, but he doesn't waver. In the midst of all of this, the unconscious guy awakens, and to everyone's surprise, the ship starts to work again. Later, while being questioned, the guy claims to be Vladimir Kamarov, a Soviet cosmonaut who works for the USSR government. Vladimir responds confidently to further questions from the team, which makes them wonder if he has post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and if he is sharing with them memories from before the tragic event. After that, they decide to put him in quarantine until the stress wears off. They transfer the data to Earth for the time being in order to get further information. They receive an answer from Earth a few hours later, informing them that there were no Rusyns in Zillion. They also learn that, even if Vladimir was still alive, he would have been over 90 years old because he was declared deceased in 1967. The team is confused by this because Vladimir doesn't appear to be that old. Then, as a therapist, Jean is assigned to interrogate Vladimir. That being said, he just admits that he's hungry. Then, while the others try to think things through, Jean goes to bring him some supper. Meanwhile, Basile goes up to Eva and tells her about his wild hypothesis that Vladimir could have been watching for their arrival on Mars. Once again in the isolation cell, Jean brings up the topic of Vladimir's purported previous absence as she gives him some food. She reports about his alleged death from 50 years ago, including the fact that his family buried him. Vladimir remains composed in the face of the disturbing realization and asks if she doesn't trust in her own eyes. In addition to all of this, they are unable to go since their spaceship is unstable owing to a fuel shortage. Vladimir inexplicably disappears from the ship the next day, despite its heavily guarded entrance and departure doors. Simon looks everywhere, but he's nowhere to be found. They soon find out that his spacesuit is missing, which suggests that he was able to escape the ship. Simon, William, Jean, and Jan move quickly. They get on their rover and follow Irene's heat trail as the other members of the team examine Vladimir's DNA. After some time, the team discovers something shocking. Unlike conventional human DNA, Vladimir's DNA has a third strand. They quickly inform the other members of the team of their discovery, and Eva states that no known living form possesses a DNA structure like this. Shortly afterward, Vladimir is discovered by Simon and his group standing next to an odd rocky formation that has a little stone pyramid on it. Vladimir replies Mars delivers when asked about it, adding that this planet has been waiting for them to arrive for a very long time. In another instance, the news of a human finding on Mars reaches Ivan Goldstein, the creator of the Zillion business and the first person to set foot on the Red Planet. The individual is described by researchers as an extraterrestrial in human form, saying that his presence there is abnormal. They claim that artificial intelligence is the only extraterrestrial life form that can endure for this length of time. Vladimir is hauled back to the Ulysses on Mars and questioned there. He asserts, nonetheless, that he does not remember how he unlocked the ship's door and exited. Afterwards, after examining the odd construction, Irene comes to the conclusion that it is quite similar to buildings from prehistoric Earth civilizations. This suggests that either human civilization served as an inspiration to someone or that humans originally adopted some aspects from alien species. The crew believes that Ivan dispatched the other spacecraft they see landing on the planet while they are having their conversation. Hopeful for a rescue, they attempt radio contact right away, and to their surprise, the captain of the ship, Gemma, tells them they will be assisted. However, William believes that they should keep Vladimir hidden from them since he doesn't trust Ivan. Thus, in an attempt to help Vladimir fit in as a member of their crew, Jean gives him a uniform. Lieutenant Colonel Edward Duaneau and Major Adam Wayne, two military personnel, arrive aboard their starship shortly after. Although Simon extends a warm greeting to them, the two armed personnel act icily. Edward insists that they give him the identical box that they took from the Zillion spacecraft's wreckage. The officers tell the crew that they won't aid until they follow their instructions when they hesitate. With little option, William turns over the box and the two go, saying they'll be back shortly. Upon closer inspection, Eva and Basile discover that the rocky structure is composed of an alloy that is non-existent on Earth. Nonetheless, it was once referred to as orichalcum, the metal of Atlantis, and is known from historical records. It has triple helix DNA, like Vladimir's, in addition to iron, zinc, copper, and nickel. William, upon hearing of this news, advises that they keep it a secret as Ivan would take Vladimir away if he finds out. A little debate breaks out between the crew members at this point because some of them want to give Vladimir to Ivan and go back home, while others want to stay and find out the real truth. The following scene finds Jean inviting Vladimir to her cabin and requesting authorization to hypnotize him. In reality, she's hoping to get more details out of him. She hypnotizes Vladimir, who surprise accepts, into telling her how he got here. The other crew members are watching their chat on a monitor outside the cabin as he starts to relate his story. Vladimir reveals that he noticed something strange in space while attempting to land his Soyuz 1. It began to consume his entire spacecraft, greatly increasing the temperature in the process. Vladimir begins to feel uneasy before he can say anything more, which makes Jean unable to keep him in check. The monitor screen becomes black shortly after the connection is lost. The crew rushes inside the cabin because they fear for Jean's safety and discovers the couple cuddling. Gemma and Alan, her co-worker, arrive at Ulysses the next day. They express regret for the previous deployment of military soldiers and justify it as a preventive step. They then say they would be happy to help them get the spacecraft fixed and make their exit easier. After that, Alan the engineer gets to work, and William shows Gemma about his spacecraft. Later, Gemma accidentally reveals one of William's secrets when she speaks with Simon and Jan. The mission wasn't only to explore the planet. It turns out that 4 years ago, images beamed back to Earth by a Mars rover showed the finding of a stele, a rewritable information storage device. Jan and Simon are enraged by this discovery and attack William for withholding such important information from them. Declaring that he is a betrayer, Jan says he no longer has faith in him. In addition, he says that he is prepared to leave Ivan's side and form a new alliance instead of continuing to collaborate with him. Basile then comes up to William and shocks him by telling him that Vladimir is essentially a living computer program because of the way his DNA processes data. He cites Vladimir's activation of the whole ship upon his arrival as evidence for his allegation. Furthermore, he claims that Vladimir was the one who previously turned off the monitor feed from Jean's cabin. William visits Jean later that day and shows her some images he received from Mars 4 years prior. He explains how the deciphering of those photographs molded Jean's look and why he chose her for the journey. She is disappointed to see that he has been using her like a puppet and turns to go. Later, as Jean is in her cabin, she unexpectedly sees a vision of her house. Vladimir approaches her in the vision and informs her that he has been waiting for her for thousands of years since she is the connection between Earth and Mars. He also gives her a coordinate to a location on Mars and informs her that she must now make a difficult choice.